now 9:30. So we will begin. First of all, certainly appreciate everybody being here.
Everybody except Wendy.
Yeah, Wendy needs an education program when there are time zones in Tennessee, and we will
Gotta have it.
we'll stand note that when she arrives and hopefully embarrass her some. Cato is going to be on the telephone with us. Is Cato, are you on, or will be, or does anybody know when Cato is going to dial in, or when we going to dial him in? Okay, well, Cato is going to be with us, I think, all day today and tomorrow by phone. He had been told by his doctor that he doesn't need to travel right now, so he's confined to Memphis and join us by phone. I want to introduce our new student member. We're certainly pleased to have a student member on the board here. It's been a little bit of time since we've had a student member. So Tiffany Cook. Tiffany is a senior in Hawkins County and Cherokee High. Is that correct? I'm remembering that. She's from the good part of the state. So we're certainly pleased to have you on board, Tiffany. I don't know, you'd like to say a little bit about what you're studying, where you're planning to go next year? You told me, but maybe.
I'm still trying to figure it out. I would like to go to Carson-Newman, but it's an expensive school, but I'm hoping.
Can we talk about the education?
I don't know. Still trying to figure everything out. So.
Well, we hope that the service on this board doesn't discourage you, including education department. Yeah, great. Okay. Certainly good to be at University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. We certainly appreciate the invitation to be here and look forward to our meeting over the next 2 days. It's really a pleasure, too, to see Valerie Rutledge. Valerie, I guess most of the board members don't know Valerie from her service on the board, but she served on this board for 9 full years, and we're certainly pleased to have her with us. She was always the one on our board who understood teacher education programs and so forth, and a very valuable asset to the board during her time. So Carolyn and I certainly remember Valerie. I'm not sure any of the rest of you service goes back to overlap with Valerie. But
That's his nice way of saying I'm old.
or we're old. Okay, so Valerie, we were pleased to be here. We've got, as you recognize, a full agenda for today and tomorrow. I was telling somebody this is the first time that I've had to put material into 2 different notebooks, so lots of material to try to work through. Okay, Sarah, I think you're going to introduce the first item we got on the agenda. So.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and excited to be here. Thank you to everyone at University of Tennessee Chattanooga. This is a real treat to be in Chattanooga. And we're also grateful for the air conditioning on a day like this. So, really appreciate everybody's help in getting us prepared to come to Chattanooga for this meeting. Our first conversation is going to be sort of an informal one, but we really wanted to take advantage of the fact that we're meeting on a campus that has a teacher preparation program. This is obviously a topic of real interest for our board members right now. We've got several meeting items today that deal with various elements of sort of our charge in the law around teacher preparation and approval. And so wanted to invite Dr. Rutledge and Dr. Murray to have a conversation with the board members about some of the work that they are doing here on campus in Chattanooga. And specifically just, have a few questions to kind of think through and certainly for the board members to ask any questions that you have, but would welcome just sort of an initial overview and kind of just a sense of the program and the vision that you have for the preparation work that's happening on this campus.
Okay. All right. So first of all, thank you all. We're excited to have you all here. Excited to have you in our library. There's a Starbucks downstairs if you haven't noticed it. So if you get thirsty in the meantime, you have a break. So quick overview of me. My whole career has been education. And so I spoke to a group of people earlier this summer and I said, this is my 42nd year, and they clapped. And I think it's because I was still alive. So anyway, as we've been talking about this, we just, Renee and I were talking this morning, so in our college we have a very diverse group of programs, all of which lead to some kind of professional license or credential. So it's everything from education to nursing and physical therapy, But the common thread is you got to meet a standard that somebody sets. And in order to do so, your program's got to be rigorous enough, and it's got to place students in a position to be successful. So that's kind of a comparison you can make across our college. But today, and of course my first love, is education and what you do to turn out effective educators. So when Renee and I talked, this is Renee's third week. Not her third week in education, but her third week here at UTC. But we selected her months and months ago, and she took advantage of the opportunity to come every few weeks. She helped interview new people. She's helped hire some of the faculty that will be working under her. So she's really been able to put her fingerprints all over the program, and I think some of the things she'll share with you today. I'm going to defer to her in just a moment. Dr. Renee Murley, who joined us just July the 1st. We also brought Avalon Gourlay, who is our certification officer, because one of the things that we have been doing over the last several months and well over a year is to look at what has been required in terms of changing licensure. What does that look like for us? Where are we headed with our programs? What are our students telling us? What are our partners telling us? And so part of what Renee is going to share with you today is what we do. We're here to answer any questions, and we might turn to Avalon if we don't know an answer and say, can you help us with this? But I think our opportunity to share with you what we've done with what the state has mandated and what the state board has interpreted and how it looks for our students going forward, I think is kind of what we wanted to share with you, and then just open it up to any questions you might have. So Renee, I'm going to turn it over to you. Okay.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. Just to give you a little bit of background information, as Valerie said, I've only been here since July 1st, but I was originally at the University of Memphis at the Lambeth campus when they acquired the Lambeth campus. So I've been a part of the University of Memphis for about 15 years. That's where I finished my degree, and then started here July 1st. And I'm thrilled to be here. I have just a most wonderful experience with the transition, as well as working with Valerie and the provost and the chancellor, who are all supportive of what needs to happen when it comes to teacher preparation and some of the recommendations for change and develop as we move forward. Just to give you an overview of the School of Education, when Valerie and I first met, I said, I love the logo because it wraps up everything that we want to do. We want to concentrate on training our future candidates to be professional. We want them to learn how to be an effective performer, if you will, with our student performance, with their performance, as well as the partnerships. And that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, I think, today, highlighting, because in several conversations that I've had with individuals, it has been the key to our success is our partnerships with our LEAs that are close by. And so obviously Hamilton County is that primary partnership for us. Just also to add to the conversation, I have been fortunate enough to work with Dr. Amy Wooten and Martin Nash and Michael in their area with the licensure as with their implementation working group. So I have been a part of those conversations over the last year and a half or so, which has been very helpful to have that insight moving forward. And also I've had the opportunity to work with the team, with the advisory group, with the new report card that's coming out. So to have a little bit of that insight has been very helpful during this transition. Our mission statement obviously is focusing on preparing our teacher candidates to be the best that they can be and to support the values of our institution. We have several licensure programs and degrees that you can look through there. I'm still learning all of them. So to call them off the top of my head, I'm not quite able to do that, but you can review that. But obviously we are looking to transition to the new licensure programs. We are adding a K-5 licensure as well as the interventionist changes with special education that we are communicating with the state as well during that process. Anything, Avalon, that we want to add? When we think about our partnerships, we were talking about in our office just this week, we have some 400 students that we have to place either through field experiences or through student teaching placements. So that is critical when we think about the number of students that have to be out in the field. And so when you think about 400 students or 400 placements, that really is a lot to ask of our districts, who are also in a time when they are working very diligently to try to raise test scores and do what they need to do. Hamilton County serves as the primary partner, but we are working with our surrounding rural districts, because while Chattanooga is considered an urban area in the state of Tennessee. You can go 20 minutes north or south or east or west, and you find yourself in our rural districts. So we also are very cognizant of what's happening in those areas as well. Now, the CGLA, Dr. Rowley, do you want to talk a little bit about that school?
Actually, Carol and I were just talking earlier, we have, just like every other system does, or every other area throughout the state, we have our public schools, we have our public magnet schools, and we have some charter schools. CGLA is a charter school that is a girls-only school, that's a 6 through 12 school, that has seen tremendous success. They have a successful business model, they raise a lot of money to do things with their students, and they're STEM focused. So it's the idea of putting the girls in a position where they can investigate STEM, they can become knowledgeable, they can learn all about it, but in a, for some women, it's a less threatening environment because there's not the distraction that you might find in other kinds of schools.
And so we have been talking with them just over the last several weeks about developing a residency pilot with them with a STEM focus. So our teacher candidates are going to be placed with them for an entire year or 2 semesters so that she can, or the principal and their faculty there are going to work very closely with us in our STEM program in developing future teachers. She wants to recruit, obviously, for her school, but also to prepare them to be in any school. We have a Teachers Help grant with the ESL Institute. Either one of you want to talk a little bit about that?
It's $1.8 million. It's just about to wrap up. And what we have done as a result is 2 things. About 40 teachers every summer, both pre-service and in-service, come to campus and learn most effective strategies. Not English, but the most, I think, sustainable and long-lasting impact is that the curriculum has been revised so that every student who goes through the program has some significant focus on working with students who come from a different language background. So we didn't want it to be just, we do it this fall, the money's gone, it goes away. Because the classrooms, we recognize the classrooms our students are going to are so different than the ones that they came from, and their ability to understand the students that come to them and appreciate their cultures, appreciate their languages, and how they might need to accommodate for that is going to make them much more successful as well as the students.
So also when we think about all of this is as a result of those communications and building partnerships with our districts, our primary partnership. We have Thrive to 55, which is a for-profit organization
16 counties.
that's focusing on 16 counties and education. And they have a new initiative that we met even this week in which we are helping to promote interaction and support with the development of a new school idea. Leadership Academy, we work with the PEF, which is the Public Education Foundation, as well as Hardeman County, not Hardeman County, sorry, I'm my West East Tennessee. I'm transitioning with Hamilton County schools in developing leaders for the schools. And then Chattanooga 2.0, obviously, I think multiple people at the University of Tennessee Chattanooga have been a part of those conversations with Chattanooga 2.0, which has been a wonderful experience for us to be a part of that. That's really focusing on education and what needs to happen for the workforce development, starting with pre-K all the way through teacher preparation. And I highlighted some red bullet points because I wanted to emphasize where we're going. These are some things that have already taken place, even within the last several days or within the last few months that we've been working toward. But I wanted to also highlight a couple of things that would be my vision. Obviously, strengthening that communication with primary partners. We have had relationships. Oftentimes the relationships have been about just placing students or, talking a little bit about what is it we can do to change curriculum. But what we really want to do is begin having some probably not so easy conversations with our partnership so we can understand what their needs are, but then they can understand what our needs are as well. And then I mentioned earlier that I want to share with you that UTC, Teacher Preparation, and Hamilton County and Marion County are going to be working together with a new state initiative, which is the Network for Education Preparation Partnership. So we are one of 5 across the state that are going to be working to provide feedback to the State Department regarding how to develop and strengthen partnerships. And so we are excited to be a part of that inaugural group. And so we are very excited to be a part of that. You know, we're thinking about performance as well. As I mentioned before, we have teacher education program checkpoints throughout our program so that we can help students reach and achieve the goals that they're trying to reach in order to become licensed teachers. We also had last semester in the spring an EdTPA pilot group. It was a small group of students, and they did very well. We were so pleased to see that. I think there were about 18, and almost 80% of them passed EdTPA. So we were very excited about that, as well as changing our student teaching evaluation form to align with what the district and what the state and what others have identified as strong points in with developing our teacher preparation. We're going to continue with the development and implementation of EdTPA. We're moving toward that. We're going to be very strategic in rolling that out because we want to make sure the students are supported. We want to make sure that curriculum involve EdTPA characteristics and standards so that we make sure that our students are prepared for that. And then there will be ongoing data collection. Avalon is here because she's our data guru in my office, and so I often run to Avalon just with quick questions. How many students do we have enrolled in this program? What are we going to do? So we have to constantly be thinking about data, how that guides the decisions that we make. We have our professional development schools identified in Hamilton County. I think we have 4, and then we are adding another in the fall with our partnership with the CGLA so that we can enhance those programs and strengthen and add more opportunities for students to be out in the field. So they have, the PDS program is very similar to a 1-year residency because they spend that time in the field that 1 semester and then they student teach the 2nd semester. So this has been, I think UT Chat was one of the first 21 years with this model. But what we've decided to do is, just recently with some of the faculty that are still working with it, is have very strategic plans in what do we need to do to change the model. Do we like it? Do we need to change? You know, what is it that we need to go about doing in order to change with the times and what's needed and how much we may even want to think about if this is what we believe is working, then maybe this is what we ought to be doing for every student that comes through our program. So we want to look at additional schools in 2016, 2017 and evaluate and update the model and incorporate that residency, that mindset of a 1-year residency. Diversity is a focus of ours. We have that as a strategic part of our strategic plan. What are we going to do to recruit and support and diversify our student population as well as our faculty population? So that is a priority of ours. We have ongoing recruitment. We actually have an opportunity coming up, I think in October, to go and recruit for a diverse population of faculty members because we feel like that's very important for our program to have that on staff, as well as we've hired a recent advisor who part of her role is going to be recruiting teachers for students to come into a teacher education program. We're going to be targeting our urban schools so that they can give back to their community. We're also targeting our transfer students with our opportunities with Chattanooga State and other community colleges. We're targeting that as well as looking at Future Teachers of America. Remember when we were all a part of those organizations years ago? I'm not sure that we've tapped into that. So we really want to start looking toward our strong students and recruiting them to come back into being those effective teachers. I'm going to defer a little bit to Avalon about the Nest Living and Learning Community that we are also starting because we feel like this will be something that will provide support for our students and our teacher candidates so that we can help them be successful throughout their program.
So on the UTC campus, there are several LLCs, which are living and learning communities. So we've just started one for education majors. So this is kind of an extra, you live together in the same hall of the dorm, you get some extra support in that your RA is an education major. We're going to have some really kind of special events for these students. We're going to come out and work with the PAWS program, which is where we work with elementary and middle school students. So they're going to be able to get some tutoring one-on-one. But really, it's kind of a way to, in my mind, make it something really special. It's kind of should be a privilege to be a teacher. We want to make these people feel like they're supported. They're making a change right off the bat as a freshman. They might not even be in an education or a couple education courses quite yet, but they're already involved. They're already out in the schools. They already have that support system, so that we hope, retentions increase with education majors, and they just get out in the field and sort of get that spark and passion for teaching early on, all together as a group to get excited. So we're looking forward to starting that this fall. And we have, I believe, 19 students right now, which is one of the larger LLCs. So we're very proud that that's our first cohort group. It's a quite large number.
Which does talk to support the need in supporting our students. That was the key too with the LLCs for us, to make sure that our students are performing at their very best, that they have those support groups around them so that they can spend time talking about and encouraging one another when times get tough, or when it's not always as prestigious as we want it to be a teacher. We want them to be able to continue to support one another so that they can be successful. And we have the support staff in place to help as they move along. So, and that's it. We're glad to answer any questions. We wanted to be quick so that this would give you an opportunity to ask questions about anything we've learned and are doing, are planning to do.
Any questions for Renee, Bill?
I'm most impressed with your learning community experiment. It's a very powerful experience in other areas. I'm curious, did you recruit these students? Was it just open and they applied? How did you get your 19?
It had 2 or 3 different components to it. We had looked at previous learning communities, the smaller ones and other programs, and saw that the retention numbers are significantly higher. They are in excess of 80% and compared to some other areas that are around 50%. So that was the first reason. The second reason is we have a school just not even a block away from Hunter Hall, which is the home to the School of Education. So the ability to locate those students right there, not only in close proximity where their program is, but right next to the elementary school at which they'll do most of this field placement and this tutoring that Renee was talking about, meant they're almost surrounded in everything that they do. Our other goal is to provide them with some financial support so that I don't have to work. I can't say I can't do this tutoring because I've got to work. We have several programs and scholarships that will let us do that. So that will let them see, if I do this, not only do I get the advisement support and financial support, but I really get to try it on very early and make sure this is the right thing for me. So we did have some who said, I'm only going to come to UTC because of that living and learning community. We thought, well, that's clearly a sign that this is the right direction to take.
We did look at their ACT score, so because right off the bat, they're taking their first semester of our Foundations of Education, which is typically held to about the first semester of the sophomore year, just because it's tough. It's a lot. You're out in the schools, and as a first semester freshman, that's a lot to absorb. So we did look at meeting the minimum ACT score, and we did look at students who had a higher high school GPA. And so it was really fascinating in orientation when, they're still deciding where they're wanting to go, and they decided UTC because of that. So we wanted to sort of keep it a little bit smaller on the front end, just because we wanted to make sure the first time we do it, we implemented it really well.
I think the other piece is that USTU 1250 that was listed as a university studies course, it's a first year experience course, but everyone in that particular section will be an education major. So they'll have 2010 class together, the USTU class together, they'll live on the same hall. So what we're thinking is if you immerse them in it, that gives them a much more complete picture and a series of experiences that are intended to focus them very early on doing that.
Yeah, I did have a couple of questions related to your slide on diversity and your recruitment efforts. so you are embedding the English language learner components that look like in all of your coursework. Are you then matching that to licensure, where someone could come out with dual licensure? So if they're a K-6 major, they would also have the EL
The
version as well?
K-12, the K-12 ESL certification, but you know.
We need more of those across the
I know it, I know.
board.
In fact, the interesting thing is, Commissioner, when we finish in the summer, immediately we get bombarded with all of these emails saying, okay, so I need one here, and I need another one here. And Hamilton County is our closest partner, but they're not the only one. So we've got the counties that are in and around us. And the majority of those schools are our school students are identifying up front, I'm going to have this many positions. So when these people finish this certification, then we're going to have these opportunities for them. And I think for us, it was a way to guarantee that there's a concrete and measurable benefit after you go through this program.
So you will get dual license?
Yes.
Okay, you will go ahead and get
Yes.
that. And then the second question, talk to just a moment more about your recruiter. So you said you have a new recruiter. Is this someone who is recruiting specifically education majors at the undergraduate level? Are they also working at the graduate level? And how did that happen? Because certainly at a university and undergraduate, you typically have a recruitment office and are recruiting for all majors.
You
So
know,
how did that occur?
we were able to convince them that we needed our own. And so
For
they're-
undergraduate?
Yeah, and
Okay.
for our school of education, because what we found was, if you start a student out with some very specific information, they can ask questions about that major, they're much more likely to make that decision than if you put them in a situation where a generic advisor provides them just some broad-based information. So for several years now, we've had, actually she has a 2-tier level. We have a freshman advisor for everyone who's a freshman education major. Then they have another advisor that they move over to. So you've got 2 advisors after you get past your freshman year. You've got your faculty advisor, and then you've got the advisor who's a part of the department. The other piece that we've done, we've tried to be strategic in hiring a diverse faculty so that students see themselves in the faculty that teach them. So we've been able to hire an individual who's Hispanic who will reflect that particular culture, and if not even reflect it, make our students aware of some of the things that their students might have when they come into their classrooms. And then we are participating in, and a lot of schools do across Tennessee, the SREB Doctoral Scholars Program, and we'll go in a couple of weeks because she's still got 3 or 4 positions open. And so this is a perfect opportunity for her to begin looking at who can I hire to bring in and bring that difference of perspective and some of the differerences that we know our students are looking for.
We had 5 positions, and we filled 2 of them with tenure track and then 1 with a 1-year appointment, and we still had 2 more. Now, the issue that we want to focus on is the fact of what are the needs in our region. So we wanted to make certain that who we hired also provided support for Hamilton County schools as well as what the needs are in this region.
That's a question too. I think our board is really looking closely at how we, as a state, think about licensure and what are the requirements. How do we know that these candidates are really ready to go into the classroom at the end of the day and take on the hard work of teaching? And it gets harder all the time, I think, in terms of our expectations for K-12 teachers. We're going to be looking today and tomorrow at a recommendation out at TPA. We're still looking at Praxis 2 content tests and trying to figure out sort of the right kind of balance of metrics that would help us have a better sense of teachers' readiness. But how do you at the program level think about assessing a candidate's ability to actually be successful in the classroom? Is TPA part of that? What are the things you look to most directly?
I think it's interesting that you bring up the Praxis information. We have had multiple conversations about Praxis over the years. And while I think we do have to have a standard that would be used, oftentimes even with our discussion around the report card, you have some universities that report 100% success rate on Praxis scores. Well, the issue is they're not able to move forward in a program if they do not pass that. So we would have 100% success rate in the Praxis exam. Also, when we think about Praxis, I have seen experiences or seen students in special education, let's take for example, where the student is able to pass the content special education and may not be able to pass anything else. Well, to me personally, with special education background, I think it's critical that we look at some of the cut scores for Praxis, because a student should not be able to walk off the street and pass a special ed content exam. That is troubling to me, because those students need the absolute best in the classroom to support their instructional needs. The piece with EdTPA, my experience with EdTPA is I have seen a difference in students' performance, teacher candidate performance in the classroom when they're able to think analytically about, this is what I'm going to do to plan and teach my lesson. This is the data I'm going to collect as it reflects assessment. And then I'm going to take that information and I'm going to make decisions regarding of how to teach those students moving forward. So it takes all of those steps and breaks it down for the students to think how they should go into a classroom and look at each individual child and meet their needs. So we know that is a discussion that you all are having. I have had a positive experience. Our students at UT City have had a positive experience thus far, but I think the support has to be in place through the curriculum and through faculty involvement and through the support for the students, because it's not easy. EdTPA is very difficult. I've often referred to it as the mini national board certification. I mean, the students are stressed. I even had a principal tell me several years ago, she called a group of us in when I was at the University of Memphis and sat down and said, you should not do this. This is too hard. I've got crying girls up and down my hallway saying they can't do this. You know, they were stressed. The teachers were stressed. But that was probably the first or second year we had done that. And so we also said, we don't want to be back in her classroom. I mean, her school, if she's not going to support this. Because that's how important it was to us, because we did see a difference. And administrators, as well as district level people even said, we can tell a difference in these students when they come into the field, into the classroom, because they've had extensive field placements as well as they had the EdTPA, where they really thought about each individual child and their needs. So even before I came here, the work was moving toward that, because we do see a difference. And I know the research is preliminary at this point, but I do feel like nationally we are seeing that trend, and it is a performance-based opportunity for students to show what they can do in the classroom.
Okay, other questions for Renee or Valerie? Let me ask one additional question on practice, on the content part of practice. I guess we have seen data. One, we certainly agree that cut scores are not in all cases where they need to be. But we're also seeing that they're just raising the cut scores may not be appropriate. And that there seems to be a little correlation between where they score on practices and then their results in the classroom.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think the other piece that is important to me. So my background is Latin, and you can know a lot about Latin and you can pass the praxis test, but doesn't mean you can teach it at all. I think the matching of the content that will be required of each child in the classroom along with the behaviors, that's a more important piece than just what's a number. And I think part of our numbers, to be frank about what we face in teacher ed, is the accreditation of a program rests on specific data that reflect how do you measure your student success. And so the measurement becomes, how can I capture that information? And it is things like GPAs, and it's things like observations, but it's also things like a measurable test that's been required by a state or by a certain body that lets you say, here's my evidence. And so I think all of those factors figure into how you make a decision about what you're going to measure.
And I think that brings up a good point too, with Avalon's role with the certification officer, with the changes with the job embedded licensure. That's sometimes our entrance into our program for students who want to come back and go into the field of education, and maybe they've been a part of the workforce somewhere else, and so they come in, and so that's our first, I guess you could say, line of defense. Well, you got to go and take your content praxis exam, because we want to make sure they at least have the content before they go out into the field. And that brings up another conversation, I guess probably for another time, as we think about the job embedded licensure, which has been another opportunity for us to work very closely with our district partnerships, because there has to be that ongoing communication about their needs and what we can do to support them.
And just previously known as sort of alternative certification.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that
that academic
still kind of
language.
that transition of terms.
Yeah.
So I have a follow-up
Okay.
question that, one, I really appreciate how you talked about the reflective practitioner, and then even in your answer just then, you're really talking about how you create this analytic professional who can reflect and make decisions on the fly, and that's truly what you do as a teacher. You're making 100 decisions in an hour about the multiple children and content and how you connect those two. In fact, we know from cognitive science that truly the best teachers are the ones who can organize for learning, right? If they have the content, absolutely, but truly they can organize for learning and they're able to analyze and make decisions. So you verbalize that very well. So to take that to the next level, you're now hiring faculty who probably have content expertise, right? How are you ensuring that you're going to hire faculty who are also representing that, what you just described that you want your K-12, teacher candidates to have, that they're also doing the same thing as they're teaching, as they're preparing coursework? I think that's a real challenge to make sure our faculty are at that same place too. So how are you thinking about your
So
hiring?
I'll throw out 2 or 3 things, or Renee may want to add some things. We have found, this is probably not the favorite thing for some of these people we hire, that we've had good success when we brought in a person on a 1-year contract, and then we have that opportunity to watch them throughout that year before we make a formal commitment. Because once you hire someone and they're on tenure track, there are many other hoops to go through. And so she mentioned the person that's coming to us this year, who is our first person who has a Hispanic background who will be coming to us. And our thought is, and she agreed, she'll come for a year, and then part of that year will be her demonstrating to us that she's a good fit for the program, treats the students well, makes sure that she presents what the students need to be able to learn and observe as they're going through their program, so that then we can make a decision about, is this a permanent commitment or is this not a good fit? I think that's part of it. The other part is, just like any other search, when you bring them in, not only do you do references and stuff they teach to the students, you get feedback from the students, they have conversations with faculty, so you do everything you can, to figure out if they're going to be a good fit or not before you ever hire them.
Are you watching lessons? Are you bringing in prospective faculty and actually having to teach?
Yes.
I highly recommend that. Good.
And something else just to add to that is, because I'm new to this campus and this position, I've spent the last 3 weeks meeting one-on-one with faculty. And so I've had the opportunity, even faculty that have been here, to say, these are the directions we're taking. How do you see your role fit into this direction or these goals? Which has been very helpful, because then that helps us figure out how is it that we can support faculty if they're not comfortable or they're unaware of certain initiatives or certain changes that are going to come about, such as EdTPA and so forth. But like I said, UTC faculty have already been on board because they've attended the EdTPA conferences and they've collected information. And I had one faculty member come in yesterday and met with me and said, I have a lesson plan that's going to help students with their writing and analyzing of everything that happens in the classroom.
Other questions for Valerie or Renee?
Join us, but y'all have a great day, and I'll see you all later.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, our next item, communication strategy. Nathan and Mackenzie. Who's going to get this off?
Good morning.
Good morning. How's it going? We're going to try to make this sort of conversational and fairly informal to start out with as we get started out. And then we have some goodies for everybody. We have put together a tremendous resource for each of you, which is tailored to your specific congressional district. So let me get the clicker.
Wendy, we're glad you're here. I'm glad you put that in so you can sneak in the back door and look away. Get to see your
I was
grand.
maybe an hour early and then I forgot about the time change.
There we have it. So we wanted to talk a little bit about communication strategies. As you know, the State Board of Education, for the first time I think in its history, has a communications coordinator, and we have had for the last year, and we're all very thankful for that. So we wanted to have a conversation. For many of you, you've got great experience dealing with the media, and some of you do not. So we wanted to just make some resources available to you. The role of the individual board member is different than the role of the board as a whole. Remember, each of you were appointed by the governor and you were confirmed by the General Assembly for your expertise, your knowledge, and your point of view. So naturally, you speak with your own voice as far as that goes. But the board as a whole, remember, only speaks through its official actions. When you vote aye, when you vote no, whatever the majority is, that is how the board speaks. The executive director plays the role that she can speak on behalf of the board based on her expectations and based on the direction she figures things will go, or to relate what the board's official actions were and to explain the role of the members after they have voted. The chairman also can speak on behalf of the board, issue statements to constituents or reporters. But each of you represents your own congressional district. So, as you know, you're getting more and more email as time goes on. Always remember, you can reach out to us. You can reach out at any point in time if you have a question or you want to have all your facts straight before you answer, or if you think that maybe the board ought to answer as a whole in the event that you were all getting the same email. So, member constituent communications. The role of constituent communications is for your constituents, and each of you represent about 722,000 people, to be able to have a voice in the actions of the State Board of Education. We have our new interactive board map. If you visited our website lately, you'll see that you can glide over your congressional district and your face appears, and if you click on it, then you can email there. You know, frankly, that was done with very intentionally. It was done to discourage mass emailing so that fewer people will create mass email lists and send you all the same thing all at once. And also so that folks can recognize who is their specific representative on the State Board of Education. We think this makes the institution more responsive as a whole. And we want to stress again, always the board staff is able and willing to help you in your individual responses, but your responses can always be your own. It's whatever you are most pleased with. And again, some of these can be responded to by a joint statement from the chairman. The importance of media communication, obviously, is to provide timely information. We want to foster public trust and support in the institution of the State Board of Education. We want to provide transparency in our operations. These are things that you as members have voted on as being your core values, things that are most important to you. And the best way to do that in terms of your service to the state of Tennessee is through media communication and constituent communication. It's also extremely important that you always have a mind to preserve the independence of the State Board of Education as an institution. You all are selected for your individual talents, your notions, and what you've done. And you are titans of your community. And that is, that's a very big piece of it, preserving the independence. Raising the profile and understanding of the State Board of Education and its role in the state. This is a very big deal, because oftentimes folks think that their only voice in education is through their member of the General Assembly. But this institution was created by the General Assembly in its modern iteration by a bill run by John Wilder, actually, in order to make it clear that folks who are devoted to this work ought to be making the decisions on standards and other matters that come before you. And because it would be nearly impossible for the legislature to adequately address each and every area that you all get into. We think that this creates a greater influence for the State Board of Education as an institution in its conversation, in its role in the education conversation in Tennessee. As you know, you're all appointed by congressional district, with the exception of our new student member, and you're most welcome. So we think it's important to improve the flow of information between you all and your individual constituents and communities. As you know, you all have each begun your days in the district, You all are meeting with constituent organizations, you're meeting with your superintendents and your teachers on a regular basis, and we think that communication right now is in as good a place, and Mr. Chairman, you tell me what you think, but I think we're in as good a place as maybe we ever have been.
I think better, really, yeah.
So, also, this is a tough thing to fathom, but each one of you represents 722,000 Tennesseans, roughly. That's the average number per congressional district. So when you think about that, your state senators represent about 186,000 each. And so the only people who represent more than you are U.S. senators and the governor himself. So that's a pretty big deal. Also, with your appointment from the governor, it puts you each in a unique position to be advocates for the children of Tennessee. You all sit at the crossroads of policy and law. And that means you all are appointed, you're confirmed for your term of office, and you have the right, the ability, and the obligation to speak up for children first. That's massive. So remember also that in your role as a member of the State Board of Education, you are both a trustee and a representative. The governor put you forth and put you on this board, and the legislature confirmed you because they thought that you would spend the time necessary to determine which way you ought to vote on each particular issue. Also, you're a representative, so when you get a lot of folks contacting you from your district, you decide how much that's going to play on your particular conscience and on your vote. But ultimately, the mix between trustee and representative is entirely up to you and whatever you are most comfortable with. You all can provide that urgent voice for reform and accountability, and you are uniquely positioned to do so.
Okay, so my part of the presentation is what happens if somebody like Kendi, who is here from the Times Free Press, calls you up and has a question and wants to give an interview. So the first thing is you can always contact me, but sometimes that's not the ideal situation if they are on deadline, if they need a quick quote, but the ideal situation for me would be that you reach out to me and at least let me know, or that I can be assistance to you. The second thing would be to get a general overview of what it is. As the state board, there's a lot of different policy levers that come under play for you. So the interview could be about standards, it could be about teacher prep, it could be about licensure. There's so many different avenues, so it's really important before you give an interview to understand fully what's the topic, what's the main idea. The third thing would be to gather any facts or research, and that's where really anybody on staff can help you. Anything that you're missing before you give your interview. The most important thing, I think, is to avoid speculative